Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Nita Asher.
And I'm Scott McCandless. It is the week of January 17th, and this is your Monday briefing. The House and Senate will not be in session this week for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday and will return the week of January 23rd. Also, the IRS will open the 2023 tax filing season on January 23rd.
The House last week passed a bill proposing to rescind most of the $80 billion in new IRS funding that was enacted last year. And the Republican Steering Committee on January 9th selected Representative Jason Smith to serve as the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. Chairman Dave Camp joins us again to discuss how these and other recent developments could impact business taxpayers. Chairman Camp, welcome.
Nita and Scott, thanks for having me back.
Chairman Camp, the House's first legislative action was to pass a bill to rescind most of the $80 billion in additional IRS funded provided for in the Inflation Reduction Act. Senate Democrats have already stated that this bill is dead on arrival. What bearing does this House action have on the coming debate over FY 2024 funding for the IRS, and what could it mean for business taxpayers?
Well, this bill was a promise made in the campaign as part of the commitment to America as the first piece of legislation that Republicans would take up if they won the majority. So they see this as delivering on a promise and making their first commitment to the voters. Clearly, Republicans feel that there has been overspending and that the debt and deficit are issues that need to be addressed. And so I think you're going to continue to see a debate over spending, and Republicans will say they're going to be putting forward 12 separate appropriations bills and potentially a preliminary CR in case those bills don't move forward. So they'll be working very hard on this. I think the issue that we really need to look at is how do Republicans deal with the debt limit? And they have continued to say repeatedly, and just recently Speaker McCarthy said that they want to continue to tie spending cuts to any potential increase in the debt limit or the debt ceiling. I think one of the debating issues there will be within the Republican Party is how much does military spending play in this? There are clearly advocates for increases in military spending as those who are not as supportive of that. So you're going to continue to see debates over this Congress about the level of spending of the federal government and what priorities should be contained within that spending.
Chairman Camp, as we said, we have a new Ways and Means Committee chairman in Jason Smith. And in his January 9th statement, he said that the committee focus during his tenure as chairman for the Ways and Means Committee would be the tax code, and specifically ways in which the tax code can reward working families, and also ways in which it can, and I want to quote him here, examine whether it is in the best interest of the American people to continue showering tax benefits on corporations that have shed their American identity in favor of a relationship with China. Chairman Camp, what could this mean for business taxpayers and especially U.S. multinationals?
Well, I think companies need to be ready for a thorough review of tax policy, and particularly the TCJA. And I believe the next couple of years, they'll spend a lot of time laying the groundwork for a review of the TCJA when many of those provisions expire at the end of 2025, particularly on the individual side. Chairman Smith has often said this is he's working class, and this is a working class party. So I think he'll be particularly focused on how does the tax code impact those who make less than $400,000? How does the tax code impact working Americans? You might also see some activity in the trade space as well, because often tax policy and trade policy go hand in hand and can be two sides of the same coin. So I think businesses need to be ready on those issues and continue to engage with Congress and follow all of these developments as they occur over the next couple of years.
Chairman Camp, the House Republicans named 10 new GOP members of the Ways and Means Committee, including more women and members from high-tax states. How do you expect these new members, nearly half of the 25 Ways and Means Republicans, to affect the direction of the committee?
Well, there are a lot of new members, and only 5 members remain on the committee who were there when the TCJA was passed. So I think you're going to see an opportunity for companies to engage with these members and really be part of the solution and part of the process in terms of educating them on some of the nuances of these tax provisions, many of which are very, very complicated, particularly in the international space. So I think it's really a chance. You could see an emphasis by some of these new members on the SALT deduction and potentially maybe an effort to index that or make other changes there. And with this narrow majority, a very small group of members will have a significant impact on policy. And so Whether this is actually an effort of the chairman or not, when I was chairman, it was very important to me when I started hearing from members of my committee on issues, because ultimately any legislation, tax legislation, will probably come through the committee before it goes to the floor. That isn't always the case, but often is the case. So I think an effort to really examine the TCJA and I think the complexity of the international tax provisions that may come forward, depending on what happens at the OECD, will be a real not only challenge, but an opportunity for businesses to engage with these new members of the House Ways and Means Committee. And also there'll be some new members in the Senate Finance Committee as well.
And finally, Chairman Camp, you had mentioned the debt ceiling a few moments ago, and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on January 13th sent a letter to Congress stating that the United States is projected to reach the statutory debt limit on January 19th and urging congressional leaders to take prompt action to address the debt limit. What actions do you expect the Republican-controlled House and the Democratic-led Senate to take to address this issue?
Well, the debt limit's really something that is a very difficult issue to work around. As I've said, I think Republicans in the House will want to attach spending reductions to any increase in the debt limit. While there are also spending concerns by many Republican senators as well, I expect that you may see more of a bipartisan approach to this issue in the Senate than you will in the House. And so ultimately, I think the House will probably have to accept what the Senate is able to come to terms with on the debt limit. What you'll see in the debate in the House is debt prioritization by the Treasury really a viable option. And in the past, that has not been. It has not been something that has really been able to get traction, but I think you'll see a lot of debate around that and whether the federal government can or cannot prioritize debt. This is always a complex issue because often Republicans want spending reductions and say the federal government has spent too much, whereas Democrats will say the money's been spent, we must raise the debt limit. So what you're going to see is, are there going to be any negotiations with the administration on finding ways to ensure that spending is at a level that some Republicans in the House can support? You'll probably see Republicans come forward with a budget and other items as they get through this debate. But I think what's most important is that the administration continue to be as transparent as possible and engage with the Congress. This letter is really sort of the first step in letting the Congress know this is coming. This is something you're going to have to deal with. And then they really need to do, with a number of new members in the Congress, I think they really need to sort of do more than just simply send press releases and letters, but also really engage with the Congress on this issue to really avoid what could be a problem. As we've seen in 2011, this could be an issue again. So engagement by the Treasury and the administration will be critical going forward.
Great advice as always. Chairman Camp, thank you very much for your insights. Appreciate your time.
Thank you both. Take care.
And to our viewers, be sure to check out the latest Week in Review with Janice Mays, included in the description of this episode, and stay tuned for this Friday's Week in Review. We'll also be releasing a special episode around our 2023 tax policy outlook due out on Thursday. Be sure to look for our Outlook publication and special episode.
As always, thank you for spending this time with us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.